driver, pull your truck around the park line, stay with your truck, one of the state troopers will be out.
Every driver values a top safety record. No one wants to have to pull around to the parking lot of a weigh station and be given a citation for shifting cargo or improper securement.
I pulled you around because I noticed a couple things that you probably need to be aware of starting the first year with the new load securement rules.
Beginning January 1st, 2004, new federal regulations go into effect that change the way cargo is transported on trucks. For specialized loads, for the first time, federal regulations spell out exact securement requirements. We'll take a look at the new federal regulations and what you need to do to be in compliance. You don't want a state trooper making your life miserable.
Right now, the way the regulation reads, there's nothing, you haven't done anything wrong. I'm just kind of getting you ready for the January 1 law change.
I'm glad because I come through here too often.
There you go.
Members of the Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association, SC&RA, work closely with the United States Department of Transportation and the Canadian Council of Motor Transport Administrators in drafting the new regulations. As we go through the changes, we will reference by number the sections of the North American Standard for Protection Against Shifting and Falling Cargo. So follow along and review the official language. As with most federal regulations, there are different ways of interpreting it. First, a quick footnote. This video is designed to be a training aid only, part of a larger overall training program. If there's a question about securing cargo, contact your safety manager. Let's start out with who's impacted by the new rules. Section 392.9 says, a driver may not operate a commercial motor vehicle, and a motor carrier may not require or permit a driver to operate a commercial motor vehicle unless cargo is properly distributed and adequately secured.
One strap and two chains. That looks so good.
So, the burden to comply is with the driver and motor carrier.
Chained down according to the regulations and company policy. That's good stuff.
Virginia State Trooper Mark Quince has been trained in the new regulations and is ready to enforce them.
So it's going to be up to the individual driver as well as the company and their training policies to make sure that they get the word out to their drivers to make sure that, hey, look, you're hauling boulders today, but you might be hauling pipe tomorrow, and it may be different how you secure it. It's up to you to make sure that it's right, because if I inspect you, you have to know it.
Which vehicles are covered under the rules? Section 393-100, Applicability. The rules in this subpart are applicable to trucks, truck tractors, semi-trailers, full trailers, and pole trailers. So what's changed? Everything from securing cargo inside a van to tying down loads inboard of a rub rail to new commodity-specific regulations for heavy equipment and other items. For the first time, 11 commodities are singled out for specific securement requirements. This change impacts many specialized transportation companies. Section 393-116 through 136 applies to logs, lumber and building products, metal coils, paper rolls, concrete pipe, intermodal containers, automobiles, light trucks and vans, heavy equipment vehicles, equipment and machinery, flattened or crushed vehicles, roll-on, roll-off, or hook-lift containers, and large boulders. Pete Trimble is Safety Director for Keene Transport.
The biggest change in the regulations is that not one size does not fit all. We've got the general requirements for securing cargo. We've also now got, which is the biggest change, commodity-specific regulations. Logs, concrete pipe, heavy machinery, construction equipment, steel coils, and those types of products.
So, what if there are conflicting rules between general and specific commodity tie-downs? Section 393-142. The commodity-specific rules take precedence over the general requirements when additional requirements are given for a commodity listed in those sections. In other words, all general requirements apply in addition to specific requirements for a particular commodity. Later on, we'll take a look at a few commodity-specific rules, but first, the general rule changes. What's the most noteworthy in the general rules? Tie-downs, securing them to rub rails and the formula used to determine the number needed. Section 393-110. What else do I have to do to determine the minimum number of tie-downs? Cargo not blocked from moving forward by a header board or bulkhead must be secured by at least one tie down for cargo 5 feet long or less and 1,100 pounds or less. 2 tie downs if 5 feet or less and more than 1,100 pounds, longer than 5 feet but less than or equal to 10 feet, irrespective of weight, load longer than 10 feet and 1 tie down for every 10 feet or fraction beyond the first 10 feet, loads blocked, braced, immobilized, 1 tie down every 10 feet or fraction thereof. In many cases, drivers may have to increase the number of tie downs to secure certain types of cargoes. Al Koenig is president of Midwest Specialized Transportation.
What we're going to be doing in our fleet is we're going to, when we think we're complying, we're going to add probably 25 or 30% more load securement devices just to be sure that we are going to comply with the new standards, because again, it's going to be up to interpretation. But again, when it comes to highway safety, how much is too much? You know, I think we can do the job and comply and go ahead from there.
The new rules also impact cargo inside a van. Before, cargo could be placed in a van with little or no securement, depending on the type of cargo. Now it must be secured to avoid movement or shifting, or you could be found in violation and fined.
Friction mats should be used whenever practical. The cargo should be secured inside the trailer so that it doesn't move from side to side or from end to end, and those are important things. And of course, the law enforcement community will be allowed to break the seals on any containers or trailers to determine whether the cargo is safely secured within the trailer.
In Section 393.114, front-end structures must meet certain performance criteria if it's part of the securement system. It goes on to address this scenario where the weight of these shingles requires securing it in the middle of the flatbed away from the header board. Under E, substitute devices, alternative devices performing the same function as a front-end structure can be used to protect against shifting cargo. Crisscrossing these tie-downs gives the shingles an equally strong hold and conforms to the new federal rules. Richard Neergaard is Director of Safety at Midwest Specialized Transportation.
This particular trailer has a headboard on it. Not all trailers do. Not all flatbeds would have headboards. So when they talk about putting the load up to the headboard, if they do that, a lot of times the load will not be loaded properly for weight, which would get you an over ticket. So this one here has been centered on the trailer, away from the headboard, but we got our forward restraints on it to keep it moving forward, which is basically the principle of the headboard on the trailer.
The North American Standard for Protection Against Shifting and Falling Cargo has many new securement device rules in Section 393.104. Here are the highlights. Prohibition on the use of damaged securement devices.
And as you can see, this chain has some bent links. They're twisted as well as bent. They've got gouge marks in them. This chain has everything wrong with it except a broken link. It also has some links that have been drug on the ground. And as you can see, the links are a lot thinner than the other portion of the chain. The penalty for using a chain like that that's damaged would be that you could be put out of service, the driver could be put out of service, which means that that load could not move until a good chain was put back on the load again.
Material for dunnage, shocks, cradles, shoring bars, blocking bracing must not have damage or defects. Use of tie downs. No knots. Repair in accordance with manufacturer's instructions. Secure in a manner that prevents it from loosening or releasing in transit. Edge protection must be used whenever a tie-down would be subject to abrasion or cutting. And the controversial new regulation, tie-downs must be located inboard of rub rails whenever practicable.
The rub rail is designed as a rub rail. If you rub up against something and the securement device is on the outside of the rub rail, potentially that securement device could be damaged and come loose. With the securement devices being inboard of the rub rail, it does give them some protection in case the driver will rub up against something or someone were to rub up against your load or your trailer, I should say.
But effective the first of the year, when you do your webbing, with your webbing straps like this, what you need to do is you need to go inside of the rub rail, okay, with this, rather than on the outside.
But the new federal regulations as written aren't that clear. It states tie-downs must be located inboard of rub rails whenever practicable. So what does whenever practicable mean? The Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association requested clarification of the term from the Department of Transportation. Here's DOT's reply. The determination would be based on the width of the trailer versus the width of the load, and also the position of the anchor points. Typically, loads narrower than the bed of the trailer are more likely to be secured with the tie-downs inboard of the rub rails, while loads of the same width or wider than the bed of the trailer are the least likely to be secured in this manner.
Okay, the only time we'd come on the outside of the rub rails if we had a wide load sitting on the trailer and it extended beyond the rub rail. Then there's practicality again where we go on the outside and underneath to the winches or to the stake pockets or up underneath on the trailer.
But I understand that some of the older hooks, and when these get banged and pinched close, that's the problem that you have. So you're going to have to make your company aware that you're going to be the one out here holding the bag subject to the fines and the tickets and the out of service if you don't.
The general rule changes also involve the working load limit. All devices used to secure cargo have a working load limit or restraining capacity. The number and types of devices form the aggregate working load limit or the overall force needed to prevent a load from shifting. A chart listing the load ratings of securement devices is located in section 393.108. When securing cargo, know the height and weight of the cargo. Check the tie-down material for the working load limit marked by the manufacturer, or if it's not listed, check the chart located in the federal regulations on working load limits for securement devices.
Well, and a driver needs to first of all start out knowing what the weight of the cargo is that he's hauling. And then from there, needs to know the securement devices that he's going to use to secure the load. And then going to the chart that is supplied in the federal regulations and by the chain manufacturers. And once the driver knows the working load limit of the securement devices he's using and knows the weight of the cargo that he's hauling, he can determine how many securement devices need to be used to secure that weight.
If you use unmarked tie-downs, there's a new rule. You must use the lowest working load limit for the device. Here's how it reads. Unmarked tie-downs are considered to have a working load limit equal to the lowest rating for that type in the table of working load limits. In other words, if you use unmarked chains, this new rule may result in adding more tie-downs or risk getting a ticket.
It's important that you make sure that, like, your chains and your ratchets have marked with the type of grade that they are, because if they're not, then it goes to the lowest grade of whatever that equipment might be. So if you don't have it, if you got a grade 7 3/8 chain that's marked, then you're okay. But if you don't, if it's not marked, then you go to the lowest rating as what that 3/8 chain would be.
There's a new formula in determining the amount of force resistance cargo must be able to withstand. It's called performance criteria. This new federal standard for preventing shifting loads states that securement systems must withstand forces in 4 directions: forward, sideways or lateral, upward, backward or rearward. Forward force. Force in the forward direction would most often occur when the vehicle is braking. The cargo securement system must be able to resist a force equal to 80% of the cargo weight. Sideways force. Force in the sideways or lateral direction occurs when the vehicle is turning, changing lanes, or braking while turning. The cargo securement system must be able to resist a force equal to 50% of the cargo weight. Upward force, also known as vertical movement. Force in the upward direction occurs when the vehicle is traveling over bumps in the road or cresting a hill. The cargo securement system must be able to resist a force equal to 20% of the cargo weight. The exception is if the cargo is fully contained. The requirement is usually met if the cargo is secured by tie-downs. And rearward force. Force in the rearward direction occurs when the vehicle accelerates, shifts gears while climbing a hill, or brakes in reverse. The cargo securement system must be able to resist a force equal to 50% of the cargo weight. The performance criteria uses gravity to measure resistance forces. G is the symbol for gravity. Forces of gravity can be measured in weight. So, in the federal safety regulations, 0.5 G equals 50% of the force of gravity and 50% of the cargo weight.
The new regulations go to performance criteria versus the old regulations. And what it says in the regulations is you have to secure a load to prevent it from moving in the forward direction to 0.8 Gs, or it may be easier calculated at 80% of the weight of the cargo. You have to secure it to prevent it from moving in the lateral forces side to side to 0.5 Gs, or maybe easier calculated at 50% of the weight of the cargo. And you have to prevent it from moving in the rearward direction, also securing it to 0.5 G, or at 50% of the weight of the cargo there also. And probably the newest, or the new calculation they put in there is you have to secure load to prevent it from moving up and down, and you have to secure to 20% of the weight of the cargo, at least 20% of the weight of the cargo. They've actually taken into account that gravity, the weight of the load, actually has an effect in the way that it stays on the trailer. So they've given us that as a benefit now at this point.
Many drivers and motor carriers haul heavy, overdimensional loads. One of the big changes in the safety regulations is Section 393.116 through 136, entitled Specific Securement Requirements by Commodity Type. It goes into great detail on securing 11 types of cargo. Remember, the commodity-specific requirements take precedence over any conflicting general requirements. This section contains a lot of detail. If you haul any of these items, consult your safety manager and read the rules. Let's take a look at two specific commodities to give you an idea of the new rules: heavy vehicles, equipment and machinery, and concrete pipe. Section 393.130. What are the rules for securing heavy vehicles, equipment, and machinery? Applicability. The rules in this section apply to the transportation of heavy vehicles, equipment, and machinery which operate on wheels or tracks, such as front-end loaders, bulldozers, tractors, and power shovels, and which individually weigh 10,000 pounds or more. If it is lighter than 10,000 pounds, it may also be secured the same way. Preparation of equipment being transported. Accessory equipment, such as hydraulic shovels, must be completely lowered and secured to the vehicle.
This excavator that we're hauling here is listed as a power shovel in the commodity-specific regulations, and what it says is that all shovels have to be lowered to their lowest point, and the shovel has to be secured to the trailer separate from the machine itself.
Articulated vehicles shall be restrained in a manner that prevents articulation while in transit. In other words, if something can swing around, secure it so it doesn't.
Articulating machines are machines that steer by basically bending in the middle. There's an articulating lock bar that has to be put into position, and that was not part of the previous regulation.
Securement of heavy vehicles, equipment, or machinery with crawler tracks or wheels. Must be restrained against movement in the lateral, forward, rearward, and vertical directions using a minimum of 4 tie-downs. Each tie-down must be affixed as close as practical to the front and rear of the vehicle, or mounting points on the vehicle that have been specifically designed for that purpose.
They've got securement points marked on them for tie down, okay, such as here. Now here's an example too where a chain, he's come down through the stake pocket, not on the rub rail, he's still with inside, the parameters are still there. Also on pneumatic tires thing, he should never secure straight up and down, it should always be fore and aft and at an angle. He's done his securement again, once again he's within the rub rail. He's got protector on there to keep it from marring so the customer's not unhappy.
Concrete pipe, Section 393.124. Each possible concrete pipe scenario is covered in the new commodity-specific rule. Pipes over 45 inches in diameter must each be immobilized with wedges and have at least one tie-down going through them. Pipes under 45 inches have various approved tie-down arrangements depending on how the pipes are stacked. And that's the big difference with this new commodity-specific set of regulations. It's all laid out. There's not as much guesswork. Jeff Peltier is Safety Director for LeFay Companies. They haul concrete pipe.
As a company, I think it's spelled out better the way things are supposed to be done, where before it was kind of random and we just did the best we could. I think now it's specific to our industry, the way that things should be tied down.
Loads shift. Securement devices loosen. Drivers must check and recheck cargo to detect such conditions before they cause any accidents or damage to the load. Stay on top of your trip inspection schedule. There's one small change. The new safety rules give drivers 50 miles within the beginning of a trip to stop and check, twice as much as before. The exceptions are sealed vehicles or when inspection is impractical.
Or if a load is tarped, it may not be real easy to get in underneath that tarp without untarping the entire load to get in there and inspect the securement devices. We also have a situation with sealed trailers. Some overseas containers and some other types of vehicles that actually have a seal on that door to prevent theft and people from just getting inside and looking around. Those seals are on there for security reasons, and the regulations allow that load or that seal cannot be broken unless there's a government official that's in there inspecting that load for securement, so on and so forth.
Federal rules go on to state when a driver must re-examine cargo. Even though this section hasn't changed, it's worth reviewing. Re-examination and any necessary adjustments must be made whenever the driver makes a change of duty status. The vehicle has been driven for 3 hours, or the vehicle has been driven for 150 miles, whichever occurs first.
How you doing, driver?
Good. Yourself?
Doing good. I'm going to run a couple things by and show you. There's some changes to the load securement rules that will come into effect on January 1, 2004, and I hope to bring you up to speed and tell you a little bit about what's going to happen.
Truck weigh stations are where the rubber meets the road. If your load isn't secured properly, state troopers like Mark Quince are there to get you.
Some of the things that are going to change the first of the year I'm going to show you. One of which is fairly obvious to me, knowing the regs, and maybe you're not familiar with them, is the fact that all of your tie-down securement devices, whether they be chains, straps, other type binders, have to go inside the rub rail like this one. This one is the approved method, okay? As of January 1, that's the way that it must be. So this type of fasten is incorrect. So your first move has to come inside of the rub rail, okay? That changes the angle here and actually gets it closer to the inside rail of the bed, and then your attaching device comes up and around and through, okay? So this is the correct way, bringing it from your ratcheting device, but it also has to be inside the rub rail on your attaching point, okay? So your attaching point, which I know poses a problem many times when they load, especially an aluminum surface like this where they get bent. These get bent from time to time, and then they're hard to get down through. You need to be aware of it as well as your company, that, hey, you know, the days of us having some of these older, wide, bent up hooks are going to be over. Obviously, the securement issues as far as the what kind of shape the straps are in still applies. You know, you can't have any cuts, abrades, gouges, repairs that are non-specific by the manufacturer, and you can't have any cuts more than a quarter width and meet the same out of service requirements as we currently do. The important thing to know now is you're going to have to go to the regulations and find the commodity specific load securement device that's approved for whatever you're hauling. They've changed the regulations, so now that you can, depending on what you're hauling, it will tell you exactly how you must secure it. There'll also be some additional securement that speaks of cribbing, blocking, and bracing. That's a little bit more stringent than it is now. And there again, you'll have to go to the regulation for whatever product you're hauling. You can go right to the regs and it tells you this is what is required for that product. Really, the basic first 3 or 4 sections that's currently in effect will still be in place. Your working load limits, that type of thing. Chains, binders, there hasn't been a whole lot of things changed about it. You know, when you're dealing with chain like you do here, this is fine, it's secure, it's tight. Your binders are all here. But obviously it still applies about you can't have any stretch links, any welded repairs that's a non-manufactured repair other than a specific repair link. And the working load limit for 3/8, and you have to know what type of chain that you're dealing with, okay? So that hasn't changed. Edge protection equipment must be used whenever practicable. Obviously that's not going to apply to a situation where you might have to go through. But I guess if the inspector deems that this edge is sharp enough that it could damage the fibers in your tie-down assembly, then that's going to be maybe a judgment call. But for the most part, in something like that, unless it's readily obvious that it's something that can cut into the securement device, then you shouldn't have to worry about it. Well, it's going to be real important for you to become familiar with the regulations. I highly recommend you spend the next little bit before January 1 to become a little bit familiar with it, and get yourself a copy of the load securement regulations so that you know.
January 1st, 2004 marks a whole new ball game for drivers and motor carrier companies transporting cargo.
I believe that the industry will benefit from these new regulations, and they should make the highway certainly safer and reduce claims and accidents. And we certainly are embracing them here at our company, and we feel that it'll be a benefit to the entire industry.
The Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association members pride themselves on safety. Before you kick it into gear, know the new federal safety regulations for protection against shifting and falling cargo. Check your load securement with your safety manager. After all, no one wants to be at the receiving end of a citation or fine or forced out of service. Besides, complying with the new regulations isn't just the law, it's the safe thing to do. If there's a question about securing a load, contact your safety manager. Motor carriers should make the federal regulations and other reference materials available to their drivers to aid in the training and compliance process.
WERNER Enterprises SEAL Training. The WERNER SEAL. The WERNER SEAL plays an important role in protecting the security of our company against unnecessary cargo claims. Trailers that are not sealed can result in lost production and refused loads. Since the September 11th attack, many shippers and consignees have taken their security to a higher level. Food loads that are not properly sealed are now receiving more attention than ever before and are sometimes being refused. A properly sealed trailer is more important now than ever before. Out of approximately $6 million on cargo claims last year, the claims department has estimated that 60% of the claims could have been prevented if the load had been sealed properly. Avoiding these claims and following proper seal procedures can save our company $3 to $4 million a year. Not only will these procedures save our company money, but also help you and your fellow drivers prevent downtime and lost production while waiting for dispositions of loads with claims. The correct seal procedures. The seal procedures are defined in 3 basic parts. Number 1, pickup. Number 2, delivery. And number 3, preloaded trailers. Remember, every load must be sealed. Picking up. If the shipper does not seal the trailer, provide them with the seal or seal the trailer yourself with the WERNER seal. The load must be sealed in the presence of the shipper. If you have multiple pickups, a new seal must be applied at each location. The shipper must be present when sealing at each stop. The shipper must note the seal number that you applied on the bill of lading. If the shipper does not cooperate, note this on the bill of lading. Bring a load. Always break the seal in the presence of the consignee. If you have multiple stops, a new seal must be applied at each location in the presence of the consignee. The consignee must note on the bill of lading the seal number and that the seal was intact. If the consignee does not cooperate, note this on the bill of lading. Picking up at a terminal or drop yard. Make certain the trailer is sealed while doing your trailer inspection and that the seal number is correctly noted on the bill of lading. If the trailer is not sealed or the seal number on the bill of lading does not match, notify the Cargo Claims Department immediately. Do not seal empty trailers. Sealing empty trailers actually hurts production. Sealing your empty today could prevent you from getting it empty tomorrow. Do not break seals when looking for empties. Unauthorized broken seals can lead to unnecessary claims, downtime, and refused loads. Remember, September 11th and the increased scrutiny our seals receive. Do not break seals to retrieve load locks or to carry flat tires. If a seal must be broken while the load is in transit, notify the Cargo Claims Department or your fleet manager immediately. There are dedicated exceptions. When pulling Dollar General loads or Target loads, only the customer is allowed to break the seal. Drivers are not allowed to break seals. Remember, Out of our $6 million on cargo claims last year, an estimated 60% of the claims could have been prevented by following correct seal procedures. Not only will these procedures save our company money, they will also help you and your fellow drivers prevent downtime and lost production while waiting for disposition on loads with claims and finding empties.